Alright guys, welcome back for another video on HAIKYU Fly High, and today I'll be doing a team building guide for everyone who's looking to start in this game. Now what I'm going to do is I will be starting off with a base team that everyone have access to, and then I will talk about if you actually have better options because you were lucky with your summons, or maybe you have spent a bit of extra money on this game, then what are the possible upgrades that you can make from the base team in order to build the most optimal team for yourself. Now obviously in order to actually start off with a team that everyone have access to, I'm just going to start off with talking about what are the guaranteed SSR you can actually obtain from this game early on. Now everyone on day one when you are doing your tutorial should have unlocked a newcomer banner, in which case you would have a choice of 4 different characters that you will be able to choose from, and you can actually re-roll 10 times in order to actually guarantee the character you want. Now the 4 characters that you would have access to is going to be Tanaka from Karasuno. You would also have access to Iwazayumi, and then you would also have access to Lev, and also you would have access to Aeon. So basically those are the 4 different characters that you actually have access to. Now out of them, I strongly recommend you pick up either Tanaka or Iwazayumi. If you want to know the reason why, then do check out my reroll guide, but basically the idea is that you want a win spiker rather than a mid blocker, which are the other 2 characters. So that's basically the number 1 character everyone's able to guarantee get. It should be a win spiker who's an SSR. Okay, now the second character everyone's able to guarantee to get is going to be part of your enrollment bonus, and you get this on day 7, which is going to be Suki, and this is a mid blocker, and that's also the reason why I recommend everyone to re-roll for a win spiker when you actually have that choice of 4. So that's the second SSR everyone is able to get, although only on day 7 obviously. Then the third SSR everyone should be able to guarantee to get is actually going to be your Nishinoya, and basically this is because on your wish list you will be doing up to 160 summons fairly early on. Now I know I'm on the trial account, however I didn't get any extra benefit, at least as of now I didn't get any extra benefit in this trial account. So basically I have only been using the tickets that was given as part of the game progression, and also I haven't spent converted any of my diamonds into those purple tickets because I have been trying to try to do as much of the ultra UR summon as I can. So basically even with all of this, what you can see here is that I was able to do 160 summons on this banner in just the first 5 or 6 days, and that basically just shows you that everyone, as long as you are willing to spend time in this game to progress, you will be able to guarantee this character because the banner is actually lasting for 14 days. And basically what that means is that you are able to summon at least 160 times on this banner, which means by minimum you should be able to hit your pity, which everyone should be picking Nishinoya. And if you're actually lucky, you may have also got another copy of Suki or Kageyama in the process as well, but everyone should be able to guarantee at least 1 copy of Nishinoya. Okay, so that's the third SSR character everyone should be able to guarantee. And then the 4th character everyone is also able to get is going to be from your rookie go, and basically by the time of day 5 you will be able to have enough missions to get 25 points, in which case you can get an SSR player selection. Now obviously there are a bunch of different choices of SSR you can pick here, and I'll kind of talk about which one should you be picking, but basically this is the 4th SSR everyone's able to guarantee as well. And then we have a couple of SR units that will be getting as part of the storyline as well. So everyone is able to guarantee 1 copy of SR version of Hinata. Everyone can get 1 copy of the SR version of Kageyama. Everyone can get 1 copy of the SR Azume. So basically that basically means you get 1 SR setter, you get 1 SR mid blocker, you get 1 SR wind spiker, and you also get 1 SR offset hitter, which is going to be Kunami. So basically everyone's guaranteed to get those 4 SSR as part of the storyline. And then there's a 5th SSR everyone can get access to as well, which is Sugawara, and you get that as part of the same enrollment bonus, but you get this on the 2nd day. Now, if we just simply put all of those characters we're guaranteed to obtain into the same team, then we already have 1 base team, which is accessible by everyone, and it's still actually very strong and effective. And the team is going to look something like this. So you basically have the SR version of Hinata and also Suki as your mid blockers. For your Wind Spiker, you're always going to get this SR version of Asahi, and then the SSR slot is going to be either your Iwazayumi or Tanaka, depending on who you pick from the newcomer banner, from your rerolls, etc. For your liberal, it's always going to be your Nishinoya, and you're just able to guarantee him by hitting the pity on the selected wish list banner. And then in terms of the opposite hitter, it's always going to be Kunami. And then for the setters, the game actually gives you two free setters. One's going to be Kageyama, one's going to be Sugawari. And that's actually really, really nice because if you actually take a look at the lineup speciality, which remember is actually decided by the setter speciality, you basically get quick attack from Kageyama and power attack from Sugawari. And the two actually complete opposite of each other. And what that basically means is that no matter what speciality it's got the opponent going to be, you can always swap it around so that you can have these have a neutral advantage over them. So that's kind of why it's actually quite nice that you have access to two different setters, and as a result, then have access to two different specialities. And the other nice thing with this team is that no matter which setter you pick or which newcomer banner you pick, you can always make sure you actually get a school bond. And that's because, for example, even if I show you right now, I am using Kageyama, who's not actually of Karasuno school, by the way. The SR version is not part of the school. And also Iwata Yumi, who's not from the school either. However, if you actually take a look at the remaining character, you are going to get Nishinoya, Hinata, Asahi, and also Suki, and therefore you already have four players from the same school, and therefore you can always activate the school bond as well. So that's kind of why this team is actually quite effective, and there's quite a bit of versatility that you can do as well by simply swapping out the setter in order to get that edge over the opponent. Now, if you actually take a look at this team right now, what you can also realize is that I'm actually only using 3 SSR units, even though I did mention at the start of the video, everyone is able to actually guarantee 4 SSR. And that's because the 4th SSR is actually going to be your selection box, which depending on how your box look like, you can decide which position out of the remaining 4 SR slots that you can actually improve. Now, obviously, it's going to be dependent on your box, whether you potentially got some good characters in one of those positions, and in which case you can actually use the selection on a different position, etc. But if you just simply ask me, what is the best position to improve on, it's going to be your wind spiker and also your opposite hitter. And the reason for this is quite simple. First of all, you don't really want to use the selection on your setter because you actually swap out your setter quite a lot of time. So even if you have one SSR setter, you won't be playing him in every single game anyway. So that's kind of why it's just not that much incremental value of improving your setter position. And then similarly, you probably also don't want to improve your mid blocker either, because the vast majority of the time, your mid blocker should actually be swapped out by your liberal when he's at the back. Now, obviously, you can actually set your liberal option to swap out either wind spiker, opposite hitter, or mid blocker, so you don't have to swap out that mid blocker. But vast majority of the time, at least right now, with the character we have available, swapping out mid blocker is probably going to be the best choice out there, purely because mid blockers can't actually block from the back, which is kind of one of their main selling point. Whereas if you actually take a look at other positions like opposite hitter and wind spike, etc., a lot of them actually have receiving skills. So even when they're at the back row, they can still help out defensively. Whereas your mid blocker, because they can't actually block, and I don't think any of them have any receiving skills either, you can't actually help receiving on the defensive end either. So that's kind of why defensively they're just a bit of a dead weight once they actually rotated to the back. And that's kind of why right now I highly recommend you guys to use your liberal to swap out your mid blocker from the back. Now there is potentially one exception when you may not actually want to do that, which is when you actually decide to play Kageyama as your team speciality, and also the opponent just happened to be of the block speciality as well. And the reason when that happens is that you would have that advantage over the opponent, and you will have that, and when you have that advantage over the opponent, you are going to get 30% power boost to quick attack, because that's kind of your speciality. And that's actually going to be really, really important, because for mid blockers, they are currently the only ones in the game who are capable of doing quick attack. And if that's the case, and you do actually have a 30% bonus to quick attack, you then don't really want to swap out one of your two mid blockers, because they could actually be helping out quite a bit offensively. So even though they are still a bit of a dead weight defensively, at least there's a bit of a bonus on the offensive end. So that's kind of potentially why you may not actually choose to set your liberal to swap out your mid blocker, and then you may actually resort into swapping out into a different position set. But that is literally only when you actually have the quick attack setter, and also the enemy is of the block speciality as well. So that's kind of why it's more of a rare case, and vast majority of the time the mid blocker to me is still a bit of a dead weight when he's at the back row, and that's kind of why why I don't feel like this is the most highest priority position for you to get your SSR selection on either. So as a result, the one you really want to improve is more going to be your wing spiker and also your opposite hitter instead. In terms of which position you actually want to improve, outer wing spiker or opposite hitter, it's kind of your own personal preference and also depend on how your box currently look like. But one thing I do actually want to point out is that if you actually remember, let's say in the situation when you actually play Kageyama and also you watch Yumi together on the same team, you then need to fill out of the remaining 5 positions, you need to get at least 4 people from the same school. And you do have Nishinoya, Hinata, and also Suki from the same school. However, that also means out of your wing spiker and opposite hitter, you would want at least one Karasuno character out of them. And that's kind of why if you really want to improve your team with an SSR selection, depending on who you actually have or you actually want to plan to play, a safe option would be either picking Tanaka for the wing spiker position to make sure you can at least still get that school bond, or picking Daichi for the opposite hitter position once again, just to make sure that you can still always guarantee this 4 character from the same school. So that is potentially one thing you can consider as well. One more way you can even further improve this team, which should be acceptable by everyone because you only require an SR character, and that's going to be using Yamaguchi as your server instead of Hinata at the back. Now, the reason why you want to do this is even though you may be setting up your liberal setting so that your liberal is always going to replace the mid blocker, liberals, they can't actually do any serves. So even though your liberal will be coming in, if your mid blocker, let's say, is in this middle position or in this right position, he won't actually be coming in to replace the mid blocker on the left hand side at the back, because whoever is in this position needs to be the one to be serving. And because your liberal can't serve, that basically means your mid blocker is going to be stuck here, needing to do his own thing. So instead, what you can actually do is basically swap this position out, or swap this character out for a character who specializes in surfing. And out of all of the SR characters, and also for mid blocker, that is also going to be the SR version of Yamaguchi. Now, hopefully everyone can actually obtain him because he is actually an SR unit, and also he does have a character bond with Suki as well, which is also quite nice when you actually put him in your main starting lineup. Now, if you for whatever reason actually were not lucky enough to actually get him, what you can actually use instead is potentially the R version of Yamaguchi. He could also work, but in all honesty, I'm just gonna hope you guys all get lucky and actually have this SR version so that you can just straightforward actually replace him in the starting lineup straight away. Now, of course, this is a very free-to-play friendly team because everyone can have access to it because all of the characters are pretty much guaranteed here. But let's say if you actually spend some real-life money, or if you just go very lucky with your summons, then obviously you can improve this team much, much further. And one thing you can do is pretty much just swap out whatever character with their SSR version. So to give you guys a couple of examples, if you actually bought the Battle Pass for the Hinata event, then you would obviously get the SSR version of Hinata, and then you can simply swap out like that. And likewise, there's a $1 pack where you can actually get Kageyama, so you can do a simple swap of the SR version for the SSR version of Kageyama as well. Now, in terms of the opposite hitter, obviously there's that grand prize of Ushijima, who's the best character in the game. So if you really want to, you have actually done enough summons to either pity or just got extremely, extremely lucky, then this is going to be the best option for opposite hitter, which is quite obvious. And then in terms of the Wind Spiker, this is where then your SSR selection chest going to come in, and you will pick either Tanaka or Iwazuyumi. And basically, you would have gotten one of them from your Newcom banner, and then the other one, that's going to be your choice for the SSR selection. And this way, you pretty much have the best team available in the game with all of the school bonds, etc. as well. Now, if you actually have something like this, obviously the team formation is there. However, the rotation you still need to be very careful with, because for example, you may still want to use your pinch server, Yamaguchi. However, if I just put Yamaguchi in my first team, it's going to drop your team power because obviously SR characters are not going to be as strong as your SSR. Now, you don't see much difference right now because they are not highly leveled up, but to give you a comparison, look at the player power or the character power for my Ushijima versus my other SSR character. They're all the same start, but you can just see how much stronger character power they actually have. And that's going to be the same gap between your SSR and also SR units once you actually level them up as well. So that's kind of why you don't really want to put Yamaguchi in the starting lineup, even though you want him to come in to serve. And the way you're going to do instead is you're actually going to set it as your server, so your pinch server. So you're going to choose your Hinata, and then you're going to have your Yamaguchi as basically the character that you'll be using as a pinch server. Now, the problem with this is that whoever is surfing for the very first turn, they won't be subbed out. Because if you just think about it, it kind of doesn't make sense, right? Your pinch server is someone who needs to be subbed in. If your first person that on your team is already going to be surfing, then automatically he can't be someone who will be subbed out on the first turn. Otherwise, Yamaguchi will be the first team character so that he can actually be on the field at the very start. So that's kind of why on the very first turn, you won't be doing any switching around. And that's also the reason why if you actually do it like this, your Yamaguchi actually wouldn't even be coming onto the field to serve for you. So what you actually need to do is actually swap your rotation around. And what I would actually suggest you guys is probably have someone like Ushijima who actually have a surfing skill to start off, and also he probably have more powerful skill than surfing skill than Kageyama, purely because he's an UR character. So you can start off with like this so that he actually have the strongest surfing power, and then you would have a wind spiker, whichever have better surfing. Probably I think what you may have a slightly better surfing, so you can do it like this. And then one more rotation, your Hinata would then rotate to the back. This is where your Yamaguchi would then come in. You would then also activate your bond with Yamaguchi and also Suki as well, which is nice. And then one more rotation, your Hinata will have come back in. However, your Nishinoya would then replace it as part of the liberal setting. And then at the same time, you also have your Kageyama for another surfing skill. So that's kind of why this formation, this positioning that I have right now is probably, in my opinion, the best way you can actually position a team so that you take advantage of both of your surfing skills and also the mechanics of your pinch server to come in to sub out your mid blocker.